Welcome to the People Pod, your UHD podcast.
I wish I could have had a conversation like that with my dad years ago.
But this isn't a diet, this is about the sport and about doing it for your mates and your team.
A space where you have clarity of thought, time to switch off, I think it is really important.
I'm Dan Thomas, I'm the waste manager for UHD.
My name's Osman Ahmed, I'm a physiotherapist in the Outpatients department at UHD.
My name's Rob Flux. I am the Integrated Desktop Services Manager for UHD. I think we have two families. We have families that we have outside of work, and we have the families that we have in work. And let's be honest, we spend more time with them than we do with our own families outside of work. I have weekly meetings with my team, and I always end up saying, has anybody got anything they want to share? How is everyone feeling? Having these mini sense checks. But equally, I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable by calling them out in a meeting. I'm happy to say, look, if you don't want to discuss how you're feeling right now in open discussion, grab me afterwards. And I think as a result of what happened during the pandemic, people have realised now more than ever, it is of pivotal importance. If you are feeling vulnerable, you need to ask for help.
Going for breakfast seems to be a big thing in my department, and that seems to be a place that people have a little chat and offload.
I first started working at Poole Hospital in 2003, and I've sort of left a couple of times to go overseas and do other bits and pieces, but keep coming back. And part of the reason I keep coming back is because of the, I don't know what the word is, vibe or atmosphere within our outpatients department here at Poole. So I'm going to give a shout out to everybody in the team. Brilliant place to work. And I think part of that is we've got a coffee machine in our department, which is great. So it means that people actually get up, walk down the corridor, come and have a cup of coffee, and everybody all catches up regularly there. And for me, that's a sign of a really high functioning team, that everybody does seek out each other for those social opportunities. So I think for me, having that supportive culture and environment with a low staff turnover as well really does help, because then you do get to know your colleagues. If you've got people that have been around for a long time, that people that, like you say, are your work family, I think that makes a huge difference, because there might be some things that you're not able to or not completely comfortable to bring up with the people that you love at home. There might be things that you're more likely to bounce off somebody at work.
But I have to ask one question with your coffee. Using reusable cups or?
Yeah, we've all got mugs.
That's all right.
Yeah, so
that's all right. That's the waste manager. Stop using single-use cups, everyone.
Shameless plug there, Dan.
Yeah. Do you think, go back to the breakfast scene, do you think there's something about that? Because I think if two people get together and I wanted to say something to you, if we're just talking, that can be quite intense and that can be quite a big thing to do. But if you're actually eating and looking at your sausage and egg at the same time, then for me there's something in terms of it's slightly less stressful and less intense. Do you think as men we're better at opening up to women than we are to other men?
But yeah, those breakfasts are usually with the female members of staff, and that is a good point. I don't think I was open up in the same way, because the person wouldn't have opened up first. I should imagine if it was a male.
I had a counsellor who was female, and now you come to mention it, I think I probably did find it easier opening up to a woman.
Growing up, I was quite lucky. I was brought up by a single mother, and she was very good at talking feelings and things like that.
My mum was a nurse here. She worked at Poole Hospital for 30 odd years. My dad came from Egypt. He was very bad at talking about how he was feeling. He would never let on any signs of weakness, and for Egyptians and for Arabs in general, that's a big sign of their culture. I probably would say that I'm different to what he was. I'm open to saying if things are not going very well, and I'm open to my wife and my mum about having different bad things happen every now and again. I think male figures, or as you mentioned, the sort of lack of male figures, does play a part in terms of how you live your life.
I grew up in a military household. Dad was in the army. 3 or 4 generations actually of my family which have all done military service. It's not so much a cultural thing, but more of a regimented mentality that's drilled into you. We weren't allowed to show our emotions. It was almost a case of, if you're feeling upset, go and talk to your mother. However, in later years, my dad really mellowed. And I remember actually having, we lost him just over a year ago now, but I remember having some conversations in his later years where we actually had some really good deep heart-to-hearts. I walked away from thinking, wow, I wish I could have had a conversation like that with my dad years ago.
My granddad, we lost him in COVID, and he was 95 when he passed away. And he was never very good at talking about the war. Even later on in life, he didn't have the sort of shift that you mentioned there with your dad. That never happened for him. grief is not an easy thing to go through. I lost my dad in 2012, and that was really difficult. I was living overseas in New Zealand at the time when I got the phone call from mum telling me that dad had 3 months to live. My whole world turned upside down. And certainly for me, I found probably the period, obviously it was hard seeing him die of cancer. Cancer's a horrible, cruel disease that I'm sure everyone in the room has some experience with. But I think the after effects of it are quite hard as well. And as an only child, always really close in my unit of me, mum and dad, and not having dad around to be, as I mentioned before, the strong man in that dynamic was really tricky. So I had to kind of shift my persona to be the person that then looked after my mum, because there was no one else to do that. So as a man, I feel like society still has a certain obligation on you to be the strong one and be tough, and that's not easy. And certainly with my grandparents, we lost them both during COVID. Granddad was a preacher here sometimes at the church in Poole Hospital, and he was a wonderful man. Read eulogies at both of their funerals, 7 weeks apart. He was the best man at my wedding as well. And so his passing left a huge hole in our lives, and he was very loved here. He died in the hospital here. So we've got good memories in terms of how he was looked after towards the end of his days.
I've just remembered something about my granddad passed away 92, which is a fair old age, but I didn't really deal with it at the time. And when it came to his eulogy, I had to do his eulogy. Part of his eulogy, couldn't get through it. Got 2 lines in. I mean, my mum did pick probably the saddest poem I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, I don't know if I can get through this. No, I'll be all right. No, I couldn't get through it. So sadly I had to hand over the poem and leave the room. And yeah, it was really difficult. And that was just not dealing with it. Just think that's it. We expected he was 92. But no, it was really a bit of a moment.
Don't blame me for not getting through the eulogy.
No, it's so hard.
The hardest thing I've ever done is read them eulogies. So yeah, I don't blame you at all.
Both my parents retired to Cyprus, and that's where they lived for 20 odd years. But mum died during COVID, and it was probably one of the most stressful times in my entire life, trying to organise a flight during the pandemic to get to Cyprus in order to facilitate my mum's funeral. And we made it just. And again, it was the whole situation with the eulogy as well. Emotionally, completely draining. And then shortly after that, we got the diagnosis for Dad that he was actually diagnosed with rapid onset Parkinsonian Alzheimer's. So he was only in Cyprus for another year and a half. And then we had to repatriate him. And he came back and he deteriorated really quickly. It was a very difficult period of having the funeral and the eulogy. I mean, losing both parents in the space of just under 4 years it's hard for anyone. Losing a parent is something which fundamentally changes your perception on reality. Grief does not come with a textbook. It does not come with instructions. And as you've already highlighted, Dan, grief is something that doesn't have a set date by which you need to process it. And I think one of the fundamental aspects of men's mental health is understanding that in situations like this, it is perfectly acceptable to show vulnerability and actually go, do you know what? I need to go through this. I need to allow myself to break in order to put myself back together.
4 or 5 years after my dad died, get moments where you kind of remember him for whatever reason. And one thing that does really stick out in my head is back in 2015 when Bournemouth got promoted to the Premier League, there was an open-top bus parade along the seafront. And I remember standing there, and it was a really hot sunny day, and I had a season ticket since I was 12, so for me it was a huge moment, and I should have been delighted, but I was just missing my dad. I just really wanted to share that with him, and he wasn't there.
There's always going to be sad days, but the same with my family. I remember having to clear the house out. That was horrible. However, I've tried to not ignore it because it's a core memory. It's something that I will never forget, but I don't want it to be the primary memory. So I've latched on to other things like, helping my dad do the rendering on the outside of the house, spending time down at the beach, going hiking in the mountains with him, all these kind of things.
Grief is hard, and I think grief affects us all differently. But I think, I've certainly found for myself I needed to make time to look after myself around that. For me, it was going to the gym at the time. That was where I went to try and help myself process the grief and things that were going on.
Do we think there's a connection between being physically active and improving mental health?
Just past year started playing football again after a little bit of a hiatus, and I did it for the weight loss and the fitness, but actually there was a noticeable difference in mental health and my well-being. I didn't realise that I might have been struggling a little bit. And what's come of it as well is I find when some of the lads have got some mental health issues, they start bringing it up in the changing rooms beforehand. There was one recently where a guy's a bit worried about his daughter's health, and he just came in the changing room, just sat next to people, and we all had a little chat. So there's definitely been a really good help for some of the older guys just to take some of these younger lads under their wing.
Yeah, I mean, as a physio, it's our bread and butter to try and get people more physically active. And we know that from a scientific perspective, there's so much evidence and research about the effect of physical activity on people's mental health. But I think from a personal perspective, I feel a lot better when I do exercise. I think you're spot on about the change room element. I know there's a big thing about endorphins and the release that you get when you're running around from that angle. But I think for a lot of people that are involved in team sport, whether it's football or rugby or something else, they all say the same thing, is that being in the change room, speaking to your mates, the chat that goes on in there, all those sort of things, making you feel part of a collective, I think has a big role in terms of how well you feel.
It's this place of non-judgmental freedom. It kind of takes away that generational barrier that we see with a lot of people of a certain age group who still look at mental health being a sign of weakness. You don't disclose it, you don't talk about it. If you're a man and you have a mental health problem, you don't tell anyone, because otherwise, you're broken, you're worthless. And that's not the case. I'll raise my hand straight away and say, I used to be one of those people who viewed mental health as a sign of weakness. And it wasn't until I had my own personal experience that through my recovery, I actually learned the huge benefits of just being completely open, bare and transparent and going, I need help.
It's got to go at some point, and it does.
Yeah, and I think for some groups of people, it's even more important to have those kind of shared experiences. I work part-time for the Football Association with Disability Football, and I'm with the England Cerebral Palsy team. We recently had our World Cup in Spain, and for me, that's a reminder of, if you get people together of maybe a different adversity through their childhoods and upbringings, in terms of maybe bullying at school or feeling ostracised or feeling different, having a bit of camaraderie through sport or whatever way it is a real positive for their mental health.
I know there's a lot of people out there that either can't do exercise, don't do exercise, won't do exercise. They want to find another outlet. I've got a couple of varied hobbies, and for me, one of my happy places is I play Dungeons and Dragons. And I absolutely love it, because for me, that's my escapism. That's my ability to literally disconnect from the stresses and strains of working in the health service and having a stressful day or a stressful week. And consequently, I get to switch off for like 4 hours of an evening and just completely disconnect from reality. And that's where I find that release.
I think that's so important. I think we all get caught up in our jobs, and if we've got family commitments as well. I mean, I've got 2 small kids under 5, and you get caught up in the treadmill of, I've got to go to work, I've got to pay the bills, I've got to look after the kids. But carving out little gaps for whatever it is in terms of your spare time, whether that's physical activity or just a space where you have clarity of thought, time to switch off, I think it is really important. And certainly I know from other dads I speak to, there's a lot of guilt about saying, look, I need my time to focus on me and make sure I'm okay.
And time with your friends as well, that's the thing I've really missed. You touched on having a family, and trying to carve out a weekend where you just be with your friends, it got so difficult. I've got quite a close group of friends, quite lucky. We'll go meet up, and then we'll look through our diaries and then book something in 3 months' time. And I sort of get jealous of my daughter a little bit, because obviously she's at school, she's seeing her mates every day. When she gets home, she's online talking to them, and I really miss that. I really miss seeing them every day. But it's part of growing up, sadly, isn't it?
What's yours then, Dan, do you think, when things are busy?
My happy place, I think, yeah, it is the football. A few years back, I was about 39, chest pain for a little while. So it turned out it was indigestion. But whilst I was in there, it was a doctor I actually knew from Dorset County Hospital where I worked at the time. And he said, well, whilst you're here, we might as well do your bloods. And what I found is, sort of the couple of years running up, I'd fall asleep in the middle of the day, just out, gone. So I did my bloods, and my sugar levels were really high. So the next couple of years was just a journey trying to get those sugar levels down. Type 2 diabetes, which isn't insulin controlled, so it can be controlled by diet. And then I found this Man versus Fat. It's a weight loss club. So you go weigh in. If you lose weight, you score a goal. If you do your tracking, which is your food diary, you get another goal. If you lose weight 3 weeks in a row, you get a goal for a hat trick. And then you go play the games. The weight loss goals are added to the on-pitch goals, and that's how you find out if you win or lose. And it was a good way, and it was a good community to really push each other because we wanted to win the games. So we were in a WhatsApp group and we're checking in with each other. Have you done your tracking? What are you doing this week? Should we do 10,000 steps a day this week? So it was a really good thing. I did Slimming World before, and that's a diet. And as soon as I lost quite a significant amount of weight doing Slimming World, I put the weight back on because I came off the diet. But this isn't a diet. This is about the sport and about doing it for your mates and your team. So it's a different motivation. Like I said earlier, the mental health side's really good. There's older guys that are quite successful guys. For a younger 20-year-old guy has got access to someone a bit older, a bit more experienced, they do seem to take each other's wing. It has been quite sweet.
What you've just said struck a chord with me in terms of it's not the act of speaking, it's the conduit with which you can encourage someone to open up. But also, in your experience, it was something that was done to, and improve your physical health.
Yeah, and it worked. Going from XL to the large t-shirts, it was a big moment. It was great, but it gets a bit expensive when you go your weight. I'm not really sure if the XL ended up going to charity or ended up in the cupboard, because my wife's very clever. So she's been down this road before after 21 years, so they could be hidden away somewhere. She's been a real driving force, and we've built quite a successful life together, and I just feel I've got to give her a little bit of a shout out. But no, that was a big thing. But yeah, I do feel, and with the Man versus Fat thing, you do get every weekly update. So that's good motivation. And there's another lad there. I mean, he was very big. He doesn't mind me saying it's in the press, a lad called Max. And I think he's getting close to 5 stone. And the difference in him, just the difference in his approach. When he comes in the room now, he was quite quiet. He used to get really down on himself. He's just a completely different person. It's been a real pleasure to watch him, actually. It is life-changing.
How do you two find the connection between diet and mental health? Because I'll hold my hands up when things are difficult, or if I'm really busy or just stressed, I will eat bad things. I'll make bad food decisions that I end up regretting. Whereas if I'm calmer, I've got more headspace and time and all the rest of it, I'll always make good food choices because I know they're the right things to do. Is that a common thing?
100%. I struggled with that. Yeah, definitely a little bit down. And burger's going to make you feel better than it's supposed to. Bad body image as well over the years. Yo-yo weight. Yeah, definitely.
I'm of exactly the same mindset. If I've got bad food in the house, that's it. That's the go-to. So I intentionally go out of my way not to buy that kind of bad food. It's taken a while to get to this point, but I've kind of conditioned myself I allow myself a treat for takeaway like once a week. I always try to encourage that kind of mentality of healthy body, healthy mind. But hey, at the end of the day, if I want chocolate, I'll have chocolate. I'll just know to keep it in moderation.
One of the reasons I really put on the weight when I was a lot younger was I was a shift worker, so I was a portering supervisor for about 9 years. But the 2 to 10s, 10 at night finish, was a real problem because I'd eat in the hospital canteen about 5 o'clock, and then I'd get home, and of course after a shift you're all buzzing. I'm not going to go straight to bed, so around about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, I was having an entire meal again. My favourite, and this sounds minging now, is it was a peanut butter and dairy crisp sandwich.
I could go
It's
for
a lot
one
of
of
calories
those.
getting
I could
involved
go
in
for
that.
one. That sounds all right, actually.
And sometimes I'd have 2, so 2 packets of crisps, 1 in each sandwich. That was a bad habit, and I did that for a very long time. 17 stone later, I had to make some changes.
Obviously, there's a big focus about teen use of social media and their mental health. How much do you think for men social media plays a role in maybe adverse mental health?
I mean, a major issue is body dysmorphia. There are individuals out there who live their lives on social media. Their entire existence is governed by what social media dictates, how you should look, how you should act, what you should eat, what you should wear. All we're doing is we are allowing ourselves to become drones effectively, and we're not taking enough time to look inside us to see, what do I feel, what do I need?
When we were growing up, the people that we'd be able to compare ourselves to would be our mates at school, and if you went to the dentist and there was a Hello or OK magazine there of celebrities. And aside from that, you didn't really have the constant bombardment of what everybody else in the world is doing and the sort of positive images they were portraying of themselves.
I think there is a lot to be said for helping to dispel the stigma of being complementary to one another. And I think the problem is, because we don't do it enough, it's weird. If it became commonplace, it wouldn't be. And I think it's the social dynamic between women that we don't have with men, because I think it's so common to simply go down the road of, I'll veil my compliment in sarcasm, in a dig, because that's the male thing to do.
Whereas women might sort of build trust and bonds and familiarity around giving each other compliments and saying nice things. For me, I think potentially, not everybody, but I think the inverse might be true. I'm probably most comfortable around my friends that I've known for a long time. And I think for me, that's how I've got bond and rapport with the people that I'm closest to.
I might change my approach now. I might start complimenting people. So we could probably use this recorded in an HR interview I've got coming up. So if we could keep this bit in, I'd really appreciate it. But I do, my department, we've got a small team and we do work very individually. It's not a team in that way. We're not in the same room. We do talk over Teams more, but I think probably what I'll try and do is check in a little bit more with those guys and talk a bit more personally with them. I think that's probably what I'll take away from this.
For me, I think the thing that I'll take away from is a lot of men are going through and have gone through similar experiences, and being able to share them with other people that have been through the journeys that you've been on is really helpful.
It's been really interesting hearing your experiences about grief.
I think it's great that space is being given towards men's mental health as well, because I think the issues that men have are different too, and certainly not greater than issues that women face. But I think having separate spaces to have these discussions is really important. And so I think it's great that the People Pod have done that today.
I will leave here feeling a greater sense of, I feel comfortable talking to anyone in the trust about how I'm feeling, how I'm doing, but also equally feeling more confident to approach others to say how they. To anyone listening, I would also say that if there is anything that you've listened to today that you felt has been helpful or has resonated with you, then, by all means, do, get in touch.
Please do find somebody that you feel comfortable with sharing that through, whether that's through the UHD networks or through different organisations like the Samaritans. It's really important to speak to people to get help. Everybody needs help at different times, and there's no shame in asking for help, even if you're a man.
And I will be trying down a suggestion of a sandwich of peanut butter dairy and quavers.
You have been listening to The People Pod. To find out more about The People Pod or get involved in a future episode, search The People Pod on the UHD intranet.